Hi guys, it's me, ShazzaHD, and welcome to the review of Day 2 of 2025 pre-season testing in Bahrain. And yeah, 2/3 of the way through, just 1 day to go of pre-season testing. And I think definitely after today, we have discovered at least a couple things that we are going to find out for real, of course, in a couple weeks in Melbourne, Australia for the first Grand Prix of the season. But yeah, we are starting to find out, I think, not the entire pecking order, but I think we're definitely finding out certain things that we will obviously learn a lot more about tomorrow on the final day of testing. So yeah, much more, I won't say eventful day, but a more interesting day in terms of the lap times, and we've just learned more today than we did yesterday. Of course, yesterday was only the first day of running for the season, so yeah, there is hopefully a tad more to get into in today's review of day 2. Still not going to be a massively long stream because still not a ton happened really through the session. And of course, the main event is tomorrow, where I'll be doing my watch along for the entire afternoon session of day 3. So, yeah, still obviously awaiting until we get to that. But let's get into day 2 itself. Actually, before I do, just want to say hi to you guys. Hope you're all doing well. If this is your first stream back, watching me, then great to have you back for 2025. And hope no matter what part of the world you're in and whatever is going on in your part of the world, hope you're all having as best a time as possible. And just, yeah, in general, hope you guys are doing well. Make sure to vote in the poll at the top of the chat. Let me know, who do you think will win the Constructors' Championship for 2025? I think yesterday, I think Ferrari won the vote yesterday, but we'll see if that remains that way after today's stream, because we do have a bit more information in regards to the front of the field. And, well, with Ferrari, I wouldn't say it's looking bad, but it's not looking maybe as great as some hoped. And we'll get on to that in a few moments' time. But the main thing to look at, of course, is the results of day 2. And topping the timesheets with the quickest time of testing so far, a lap time that is 0.6 of a second quicker than the best time of testing last year, done by the same driver, Carlos Sainz, but this time for Williams. And it is clear that Williams have improved a lot. That lap time of 1:29.3 is a lot quicker than they were even in qualifying around this track in 2024. If I just go to quickly have a look at the lap time that Williams did, the best lap time they did in qualifying here in Bahrain last year, the best time they did was a 1:30.2, which I think would have been on a step softer compound. I don't think it would have been on the C3. I think it would have been on the C4 compound. So they're, a second quicker on a harder compound. So Williams clearly have a much better car this year. Is it a front-running car? I don't think so, but there is still tomorrow for us to find out more about maybe that possibility. But the Williams car is a lot quicker than it was last year. I think that is pretty clear to see. I think it's more likely they're right at the front of the midfield than part of that front-running group of cars. So, yeah, I think that is more likely where Williams look to be. I'd be very surprised if they were, fighting for a podium in a couple of weeks in Melbourne, even though that would be absolutely awesome to see. Williams back a lot more towards the part of the grid where they, I wouldn't say deserve to be, but given the history, they really should be. And then after that, you got the two Ferraris of Hamilton and Leclerc. Ferrari looking quick over a single lap, but we'll get into some long run data in a moment, comparing Leclerc in the Ferrari to Norris in the McLaren, and not looking too great for Ferrari, even though there might be a reason for that in terms of tyres. Yeah, we'll get into that soon enough. But then there's a nearly half a second drop off to the two Mercedes cars. Mercedes, just like Ferrari, a lot quicker than yesterday, but I wouldn't necessarily say that, this is clear evidence that Ferrari are way ahead of Mercedes, because I don't think Ferrari or Mercedes are necessarily pushing a lot harder than the other. So I don't think we can, I don't think we have evidence to suggest that they're both pushing at about the same level, is what I'm trying to say. Lance Stroll in 6th, Aston Martin looking a lot quicker today. Lawson 7th in the Red Bull, had some reliability issues in the morning, I believe. So not a great day for Red Bull, but Red Bull not focusing on pure lap time at the moment. They're just focusing, I think, on the balance of the car. I think tomorrow you'll see Red Bull start to go for some lap times. Alpine looking a lot better than yesterday, doing 130.3, which is a lot better than yesterday, and just in general look a lot better than they were in testing, obviously, a year ago. And then Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls, 10th on the C4 compound. Racing Bulls, I do have a feeling, are not very good. I just, looking at the car and just looking at the lap times they're doing relative to other midfield runners who I don't think are on massively different programs. Yeah, I just have a feeling Racing Bulls have not got a very good car, which is in line with how I expect their season to go, because they didn't end 2024 very good, to be honest. Fernando Alonso 11th. Of course, we know can be a lot quicker than that compared to Stroll, but probably on a different program. Tsunoda 12th. Piastri 13th, Norris 14th, McLaren deciding to focus purely on the long runs, which they've still shown some great pace on. Quickest time of today for McLaren being a 1:30.7, which of course is nearly half a second slower than they were yesterday. So yeah, McLaren not going for low fuel runs, but they will, I'm sure, tomorrow. Bortoletto 15th, Hulkenberg 16th. I'm still pretty confident Sauber have got the slowest car. Not by much. I'm not saying it's, half a second or anything crazy like that, but I think Sauber, I'm still confident, still at the back. And then Haas, obviously we can't tell because they're doing what they did last year, which is just focusing on the long runs. So we'll see where they are either tomorrow or when we get to the first Grand Prix in Melbourne. But if we just go back to the top 10, Williams, as I said, a lot better. Clearly, they are this season than they were last season. I don't think that them being as quick as they are, not compared to the other teams, forget that, but as being as quick as they are compared to their own lap time, their own personal best, at this track in 2024 on a harder compound, I just think is clear evidence that they are much, much faster. Again, are they front runners? Probably not. I think more likely they're 5th, 6th on the grid, 5th or 6th best on the grid. Probably fighting for the best of the rest tag, which would still be great for them. But I think we've seen enough evidence now to suggest that Williams have a much better car than a year ago. Again, where they are exactly, I think, again, it's most likely 5th best at the absolute best. But yeah, we'll find out more tomorrow and in Melbourne. Ferrari are quick, but whether they're the quickest, I think at this point from the data that we're going to go into in a moment, I would probably lean towards no. Mercedes look okay. Aston Martin have shown a bit more pace, but I would still say they're midfield runners. Alpine, obviously a lot better than they were this time last year. They kind of look about as good as they were at the end of last year, which was pretty good. Like I said, Racing Bulls, I am not very confident about them right now. And then, again, Haas, can't tell at the minute. And then Sauber, I'm still confident they've got the slowest car. I would not be surprised if Racing Bulls and Sauber have the two slowest cars. I would not be shocked at all by that. And I'd be pretty confident in making that prediction right now, that those are the two slowest teams. Sauber the slowest, of course, and then Racing Bulls probably, a couple tenths of a second quicker, which is, not much, but still enough to keep them clearly ahead of Sauber. But, yeah, still quite a bit to find out in regards to day 3, and then obviously evaluating our opinion going into, the first Grand Prix in Melbourne. Right, so yeah, some data I want to get into, but before I do, I just want to have a quick check of something. Because I just want to make sure I know who was on what compound for these longer runs. And hold on a second. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to show this tweet, and I'll give full credit to the guy because he does great work, this guy on Twitter. Let me just get this up on screen if I can. There you go. So there's this guy, Tony Solikov, on Twitter. Great guy, posts some great data. So full credit to him for this data. He takes, again, full credit for this. And this is the comparison long runs between Ferrari, the Ferrari of Leclerc, the McLaren of Norris, and the Mercedes of Antonelli. So on the C3, Leclerc doing an average lap time of a 1:35.8. Hope you can see that on the far left. Norris, though, 0.3 of a second, 3.5 tenths quicker. And the stint length was about the same. So McLaren, clearly better off on the C3. Leclerc then did a stint on the C2, which was an average lap time, it appears, of a 1:34.7. Lando Norris did he did a stint on the C2, but it was a 1:32.9, which is nearly 2 seconds quicker. I think clearly had a bit less fuel in the car for that run. There's no way McLaren are 2 seconds a lap quicker on the C2 compound than Ferrari. If that's the case, you can crown Lando Norris champion right now. But then if you look at the C1 compound tyre stint that Leclerc did, which was pretty long, he did an average lap time of a 1:34.1. Lando Norris, a 1:34.3. So if this data is absolutely legitimate in terms of the teams were pushing as hard as they can on the long runs, what does this data tell us? It tells us that McLaren, over a long run, have got a good car. But I think if, with McLaren being slower on the C1, but then faster on the C3, what it tells us is McLaren is looking after the softer compound tyres better than Ferrari are, and that Ferrari are performing on the harder compounds better, probably because they are, because they're harder and they're not wearing out as quick as the C3. That would be my guess. Again, ignore the C2 tyre stint comparison because I think Lando was quite clearly had less fuel for that run. So yeah, McLaren, I would favour looking at this data in terms of the long runs, but Ferrari being quicker on the C1 gives at least some encouragement, I think, for some, say, Ferrari fans out there that, are hoping, obviously, that Ferrari have got a good car this year. Like I said, maybe that is the case, that McLaren are just faster on the softer compounds because they're managing the tyres better, especially towards the end of the stint, and then maybe Ferrari just need to be on harder compounds to be able to have better pace. If we then look at Kimi Antonelli and his stint, he did a very similar stint to Leclerc on the C3, and his average lap time was a 1:35.9, only just slower than Leclerc, but quite a bit slower than Lando Norris. So decent pace from Mercedes, but nowhere near the best. On the C2 compound, which was a few laps shorter of a stint than what Leclerc did, Antonelli actually quicker by a tenth and a bit over Leclerc, which is interesting. And then on the C1 compound, Antonelli did a pretty much similar in length stint to Leclerc. And Antonelli, as you can see, again, a tenth and a bit quicker than Leclerc, and 0.3 of a second, actually 3.5 tenths quicker than Norris. So Mercedes, maybe over a single lap, aren't great, but race pace, again, if this is absolutely legitimate and all these three teams were pushing as hard as they could, the Mercedes, over a long run, look pretty good. So what does this data overall tell us? It tells us that McLaren, I would say, again, have got a good car. Ferrari looking better on the harder compound tyres. But Mercedes, pretty much on all of the compounds, looking good. And even better on the harder compounds, being the C2 and the C1. So if you're a Mercedes fan, I'd say pretty encouraging data. McLaren as well, I'd say you'd have to, I think you'd have to say encouraging data for them as well. Ferrari, not so much, but not the end of the world. Again, when you look at the stint on the C1 compound compared to McLaren and even Mercedes, that is a bit more encouraging, for the Ferrari team. But yeah, Mercedes and McLaren, I say Mercedes more so, looking good. So yeah, let me come back to here. So yeah, important to share that data because those that long run data we don't always get access to. And again, full credit to Tony Solikov, who posts that great data on Twitter. But yeah, that is, I'd say, pretty interesting data. In terms of over a single lap, who has the pace, it's still way too hard to say. Ferrari, I think, look good. I wouldn't say great, but at least good there. I think they're going to be in the fight over a single lap. McLaren looked good yesterday, but didn't push today. Red Bull have not pushed yet. Mercedes are kind of pushing, but not really. So, yeah. But again, over those long runs, again, for Mercedes, was looking pretty good. McLaren, good. Ferrari, not so much, but still some encouraging data in there. We just need to see, with Max at the wheel, with his long runs, how do Red Bull compare to Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren. So I was a bit worried that maybe we would get a team ending up way too quick through testing and maybe the start of the season, and I was worried we were going to have maybe one team be miles out in front maybe for the first few races, kind of like last season with Red Bull. But looking at that data again, as long as they were all pushing at the same level, it shows that those three teams, Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren, are all lapping at around about the same pace. Not exactly the same pace, but they're all in the same ballpark. And that's what we want. That's exactly what we want. So yeah, that is good to see. But again, we will find out more tomorrow on day 3. And just a reminder of what the plan is. Tomorrow I will be live at 11:45 a.m. UK time, 15 minutes before the afternoon session begins, to cover the final 4 hours of pre-season testing. Make sure to join me for that watch along, as we'll see the the quickest runs, hopefully, of testing take place, and find out, hopefully, a lot more about the pecking order for the 2025 Formula 1 season. Niblo might be joining me for tomorrow. Haven't got a response as of yet, but I know he is interested. I think it just depends on timing as to whether he will be able to come on. So hopefully he can come on at some point. But yeah, that's the plan. Is I'm going to be live from 15 minutes before the afternoon session begins at 11:45 a.m. UK time, and then live until the end of day 3 / the end of testing. And as soon as that day comes to an end, of course, the stream will come to an end. And then remember, guys, next week I will be uploading my review of pre-season testing, where we're just going to go through as much data as we can and then try and interpret it into what we think, or I think, it means for the 2025 Formula 1 season. But before I head off, as I said, this was always going to be a short stream. Let me just read out a couple of the comments in the chat that you guys have posted. Say Regara saying, to start, rest in peace to Mr. Silverback. If you're talking about the guy who was regularly in our chat, I hope that's not true. That'll be quite sad. Science was quite quick. Yep, he was. And hopefully there's less crashes. The Williams guys have less weight on their hands, lol. Yeah, they'll probably, after what happened last year, they'll probably barely have any accidents this year. George saying, hello, mate. Who do you think is the sandbagger of testing so far? Well, I'd say Haas definitely are the sandbagger, because they have done absolutely no low fuel runs. Other than them, though, I think you would still have to say Red Bull, just like last year. Red Bull last year was sandbagging very heavily, but that was because they were confident of what they had. Is it the same for this year? I'm not so sure. We'll find out more tomorrow. Hopefully Red Bull are right in the middle of all of that data that we just went through, and not, absolutely miles ahead. And then Will F1, who says, quote, here at Williams HQ, we do glory runs to strike fear and attract sponsors so we can afford gravy. Sean saying the Racing Bulls looks hard to drive based on what we saw from Hadjar earlier. Yeah, I did see briefly an on-board. I think it was from Hadjar, and yeah, it didn't look great. But if you watched my early 2025 predictions video, which I uploaded a couple days ago, I did say that I think Racing Bulls are going to be maybe not one of the slowest teams, for the entire season, but in the championship, I think they'll finish probably at best in 9th place, because they ended last year in not really that great a form, and driver lineup, no disrespect to Hadjar, but the driver lineup has got worse with Lawson leaving and Hadjar coming in. And yeah, that car just hasn't really improved noticeably in quite a while. So, yeah, I just don't really have any confidence with Racing Bulls for 2025. And Oftdriz United says, where do you think Lewis's race pace will be at, whether he focuses on it tomorrow afternoon? Well, I do assume he'll be in the car tomorrow afternoon because he's done the morning session twice, so it makes sense. Where will his race pace be at? Hopefully right there, about the same at least as Leclerc. That's what you would hope, right? Especially if you're a Lewis Hamilton fan. I mean, you saw, today with the results, Hamilton was quicker than Leclerc by only, a couple hundredths of a second. So, yeah, as long as it's as close as that, then absolutely ideal. I think, go forward. But no way to tell so far whether Lewis is on the pace or quicker than Leclerc. You're not going to find that out, really, I think, until not even the first race. I think you need to wait probably after the first couple races to really determine whether Lewis is absolutely back. And, ahead clearly of Leclerc. So we will wait and see. Music Monster Man says, hey there, good to see you, Chaz. Excited for the season? Absolutely. It's still looking like it's going to be a classic. But I think, guys, we'll come to the end of the stream there. Because, like I said, not a lot happened. That's really, the data I just went through, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you guys. Tomorrow, like I said, watch along from 11:45 a.m. UK time. We will watch along the final 4 hours and we'll see what the teams have to show us. And hopefully have a decent idea of what the pecking order will be going into the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne. Thanks for coming along today. Been great to have you. Let me just finish up the results in the poll. And once again, you guys think Ferrari will win the Constructors' Championship. 65 votes and 72% of you went for Ferrari. So, yeah, pretty confident sounding from you guys. Tomorrow's poll that I'll have running during the watch-along will be, who do you think will win the Drivers' Championship? That's one that I'm very interested to see from you guys in terms of who votes for who. Because, I mean, the options I'm going to put in will be Verstappen, Hamilton, Leclerc, Norris. If I had enough room, I could include Piastri, Russell, and Antonelli in that poll probably as well. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see who you guys think is going to be the world champion. My early prediction before we had any testing was still Max Verstappen. But tomorrow might just change my mind as to who is going to be the champion of 2025. But yeah, thank you guys for today. Been great to have you along. Make sure to come along tomorrow for the watch along to join us for that important running in Bahrain. Thank you guys as usual for smashing the like button, commenting, and all of that stuff. Make sure to check out my last couple recorded videos. The early 2025 predictions video that I uploaded a couple of days ago. And last Friday, was it last Friday? No, last Sunday, I uploaded a video about why Ferrari can win the 2025 championship. So make sure to go and watch that. It's got a few thousand views. And if you haven't watched it, make sure to do so before the next bit of content. But guys, cheers for today. And until my watch along tomorrow at 11:45 a.m. UK time to cover the final 4 hours of pre-season testing in 2025, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.